One of these quarterbacks blew his entire signing bonus gambling before his rookie season even ended. Another was given a blank DVD just to see if he was actually studying film. But these weren't just any scrubs who got lucky. We're talking about Heisman Trophy winners, first overall picks, and guys who were supposed to be the next generation of superstars. These 6 quarterbacks had amazing opportunities, and then they destroyed it all in the most unbelievable ways possible. Starting off with, college football has seen some crazy talent over the years, but Johnny Manziel was different. Back at Texas A&M, this dude was just awesome. I mean, he was the first freshman ever to win the Heisman Trophy, and he totally deserved it too. He was also the first player in SEC history to have at least 2 games with over 500 total yards of offense in one season, which is even more wild when you think about just how good those defenses are in that conference. Johnny Football also had an outstanding bowl game against Oklahoma that year where he threw for 287 yards and 2 touchdowns while also running for 229 and 2 more scores. Here's the thing. When plays completely fell apart and receivers were just scrambling around to get open, Manziel was almost impossible to stop. It was crazy to watch just how he could make stuff happen when everything seemed to go wrong.
Manziel running it straight ahead with the crease. Manziel at the 40, needs a block. Manziel in space. Manziel, Johnny Football.
But general managers were scared about drafting him. They knew that this could either turn into a great dual threat quarterback or he could be the biggest disaster in the NFL. There was really no in between, so most teams just went with the safer picks instead. Then at pick 22, the Browns finally took the big risk.
With the 22nd pick in the 2014 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select Johnny Manziel.
But that first year, he barely played. Just 5 games with 2 starts, 0 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Then his second season actually did show some real flashes. Against Tennessee, he had 172 yards and 2 touchdowns. Later on, he led the Browns to a 24-10 win against San Francisco, going 21 for 31 with 270 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. But those were just glimpses because Johnny cared way more about partying than playing football. Look, he had all the talent you could ever want, but NFL defenses are so much faster and more complicated than college. They can throw all these crazy coverages at you to mess with your head, and you need to be 100% invested in the game to be great at the pro level. Johnny just wasn't willing to do the work to figure all that out and stay focused. Now, we've all seen guys mess up their careers with off-field drama, but Jeff George, this dude managed to limit his success just by being impossible to work with. The Colts took him first overall in the 1990 draft after he put up 2,417 yards and 19 touchdowns at Illinois, leading the whole Big Ten. And George could rifle the ball. Some people even said his release was as quick, if not faster, than Dan Marino's.
Well, when you watched him throw, you stood there in awe of what this young man could do with the football.
And he actually showed that he could be great when he felt like it. In 1997 with the Raiders, he led the entire league in passing yards with 3,917 and also had 29 touchdown passes to just 9 interceptions. But the Raiders went 4-12. Losing records were a very common theme for George during his career. He only led his teams to positive records 3 out of his 12 years in the league. Tim Brown said the guy's deep ball accuracy was just unreal, but his own teammates just couldn't stand him. He had a ton of talent, but he just couldn't make it count. He did have some great games though. In 1999 with Minnesota, he was hitting Randy Moss in stride better than Randall Cunningham. Week 11 against Chicago, he threw for 374 yards and 3 touchdowns in overtime with Moss going for 204 yards. Next week against San Diego, 363 yards and 4 touchdowns in a 35-27 win. But the guy's attitude was completely toxic. He destroyed coaching careers and never took responsibility for anything. He somehow always found ways to mess up even when he was in great situations. Even with over 27,000 career passing yards and 154 passing touchdowns, good teams wanted nothing to do with him because his reputation just followed him everywhere. Okay, but if we're talking about the fastest way to destroy an NFL career, Schllester basically tried to set the world record. This guy never even gave himself a shot to fail as a quarterback once he got to the league. He came out of Ohio State looking pretty damn good. good enough for the Colts to use the 4th overall pick on him in 1982. People were genuinely excited about this kid. He'd shown some real flashes in college and looked like he was going to develop into a great player with some time. But Schllester had a massive problem that had absolutely nothing to do with football. Well, I guess in some ways you could say it did. He was completely addicted to gambling, and I'm talking way out of control here. By the middle of his rookie season, he had already blown through his entire $350,000 signing bonus. And remember, this is 1982 money we're talking about, so that was some serious cash back then. Schllester barely even played that year. Just 3 games, 197 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. His debut game in week 1 consisted of him going 6 for 18, 103 passing yards, 0 touchdowns, and 1 pick. Then he was benched until late in the season, only playing in 2 blowout games. Commissioner Pete Rozelle eventually cut it down to 13 months after Schllester promised to get help, but here's the crazy part. He later admitted that he kept gambling the entire time he was suspended anyways. They let him back in for 1984, but his career was basically already over. Schllester only played 13 games total in the NFL with 6 starts and a 45% completion rate. The guy actually did pretty well later on in arena football. He even won MVP and led his team to a championship in 1990, but even that fell apart when people started to figure out that he was once again betting on games. Schlester's gambling issues never went away. He also ended up doing 10 years in prison and has been arrested multiple times since then. So the guy just can't stay out of trouble. Deshaun Watson's situation is different because the guy was legitimately incredible before everything fell apart.
Is Deshaun Watson just as good as Patrick Mahomes?
I just think Watson's a better quarterback in the pocket. I think Mahomes is a little better off schedule, but if you're taking one or the other, you're splitting hairs.
Back in 2017, the Texans took him 12th overall, and even though he only got in 7 games before getting hurt, Watson put up a 103.0 passer rating that had everybody thinking that this guy was going to be something special. He had the arm talent, he had the scrambling ability, and for the first 3 years of his career, Watson was objectively one of the best players in the entire league. I'm talking Pro Bowl appearances in 2018, 2019, and 2020. Before long, he was putting up MVP numbers.
Oh yeah, he's elite. He's elite. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in his league.
But just when he was reaching his prime, everything collapsed. Watson missed all of the 2021 season after getting hit with lawsuits from multiple massage therapists. Then the Browns still went ahead and traded for him anyways, giving him possibly the worst contract in NFL history, $230 million fully guaranteed. Since then, it's been a complete disaster.
Deshaun Watson has settled all but 4 of the lawsuits filed against him.
Watson only played 19 out of a possible 51 games with Cleveland, and his numbers have been brutal. 3,365 passing yards, 19 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions with a 61% completion rate across 3 seasons. And it keeps getting worse because Watson tore his Achilles in 2024, then retore it again just 3 months later.
Deshaun Watson blew out his Achilles again. 3 months after having it surgically repaired, he's blown it out. Ian Rappaport says he could now miss all of 2025.
To top it all off, the Browns still owe him $92 million in guaranteed money. You could argue that there's no bigger draft bust in NFL history than Ryan Leaf, and he will actually tell you this is true.
There's no more who's the biggest bust of all time. You don't have to drag any of the names in there anymore. Let's just say it's me.
But here's what's crazy to think about. A lot of people actually thought that he was just as good as Peyton Manning coming out of college.
Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf.
2 can't-miss rookie quarterbacks.
Both have potential to be stars for a long, long time.
Leaf had just put together this incredible junior year at Washington State. 3,637 yards and 33 touchdowns while finishing 3rd in Heisman voting behind Manning and Charles Woodson. The dude basically carried his team to their first Rose Bowl in over 60 years. Just like a lot of the other players in today's video, Leaf had all the physical abilities that teams wanted in a quarterback, and that's what got the Chargers to take him 2nd overall in 1998. On the flip side, Peyton Manning famously told the Colts during his visit that they should pick him or else, which pretty much locked up the first pick for Indianapolis. But plenty of scouts thought that San Diego actually got the better end of the deal with Leaf. They could not have been more wrong. Leaf's rookie year was one of the worst in history. I'm talking 1,289 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 15 interceptions. His approximate value for his team that year, according to ProFootballReference.com, was literally -2, meaning that the Chargers would have been better off with pretty much any other quarterback in the league. The worst moment came in Week 3 against Kansas City, where he completed 1 pass on 15 attempts. Then the next week against the Giants, he threw 4 interceptions and 0 touchdowns. But you know what? Lots of quarterbacks struggle as rookies, so there was still hope that Leaf could figure it out with some time. The problem is, everything that could go wrong just kept going wrong. Right before his second season, Leaf hurt his throwing shoulder when he fell on a fumble in practice. It was a torn labrum that messed up his mechanics and his confidence. Then came that famous meltdown in the locker room that showed everybody that he was just not emotionally ready for the NFL.
Don't talk to me, all right? Knock it off!
In 2000, he hurt his wrist in Week 4 and it bugged him all season. When he tried to sign with Dallas in September of 2001, he actually failed a physical because of that same wrist and couldn't join the team. He did later sign with them in October of that year, but only started 3 games while not winning a single one of them. Leaf admitted that he just wasn't ready for the NFL. Mostly the work ethic and maturity needed to succeed at that level. Maybe with a different organization, he could have turned into something decent. The physical tools, like we said, they were definitely there, but he ended up with a 48.4% completion rate for his career, 14 touchdowns, and 36 interceptions in 655 attempts. The guy just didn't have the mental side figured out, and San Diego's mess of a situation made everything worse. Okay, but when your own coaches are basically setting traps for you with blank DVDs just to see if you're paying attention, you know your career is about to hit rock bottom. Jamarcus Russell came out of LSU looking like a quarterback that would be great for years to come. ESPN's Mel Kiper compared him to John Elway. This dude could make throws that most people just could never make, and back in 2007, that was enough to get Al Davis and the Raiders to take him first overall. Just think about who Russell got picked ahead of. Calvin Johnson, Adrian Peterson, Darrelle Revis, Patrick Willis, and Joe Thomas. That's one of the best draft classes in history, absolutely loaded with future Hall of Famers, and Oakland took Russell over every single one of them. But the warning signs were there from day number 1, they were just ignored. Former Raiders legend Matt Millen actually warned Al Davis not to draft Russell after he had a very unimpressive interview, but Davis ignored him and went with his gut anyway. You could tell things were trending in the wrong direction almost immediately when Russell held out for more money before playing in a single game, eventually getting the Raiders to budge on a 6-year, $61 million deal. Russell then proceeded to miss the start of the season and was inactive until Week 13 of his rookie year and only played 4 games, throwing for 373 yards with 2 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Not exactly what you want to see from your number 1 draft pick. His second year in 2008 actually did look a little better. He had a 77.1 passer rating and threw for 2,423 yards and 13 touchdowns with 8 interceptions. But 2009 was just a complete disaster. Just like Ryan Leaf, Russell had a -2 approximate value rating. He threw just 3 touchdowns to his 11 interceptions. And January 3rd, 2010 was his final appearance where he threw for 102 yards and an interception against the Ravens, and that was pretty much it. 3 years after him being the top pick in the NFL draft, no other team in the league wanted anything to do with the guy. What really went down is that Russell just did not care about putting the work in to succeed at the pro level. Still, the dude made over $36 million in his career and only threw 18 touchdown passes. A little over $2 million per touchdown pass is highway robbery. All right, guys, that was 6 quarterbacks who had everything going for them, and then they threw it all away for a bunch of different reasons. But I want to know what you guys think. Did I miss anybody in this video that you want to see in future videos? And also, if you enjoy this type of content, hit that subscribe button and like the video.